Welcome to the Rialto Marketing Podcast. Today's episode is a revenue acceleration series interview where we talk to seven-figure B2B professional service firm owners that are actively trying to grow their business and get to the next level. We talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly so that you can learn from their experience. Hi, I am Tim Fitzpatrick with Rialto Marketing. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. We believe marketing shouldn't be difficult. And we also believe that if you want to accelerate revenue growth, you must remove your revenue roadblocks. I am super excited today to have with me Paul Nebb from Titan Technologies. Paul, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I can't wait to dig into this with you. Before we do, I want to ask you just a few rapid fire questions if you're ready to jump in with both feet.
All right, let's go.
Okay, awesome. Very quickly, what do you do? How long have you been doing it?
I'm Paul Nebb, the CEO of Titan Technologies. We're a managed services IT security provider located in New Jersey.
And how long have you been in business, Paul?
I started the company in 2008, so it's that 15 years now.
Okay. Dang, man.
Hard to believe. 15 years.
That's a long time. You're doing something right. So, Paul, in those 15 years, what's the most important lesson you've learned?
Don't give up. Now, there have been many times where things get tough, things get interesting, hairy, weird, but don't give up.
Yeah. What about you? We all know as business owners, there are times where we hit roadblocks. It's just tough times, right? Do you have any kind of mantra or something motivational you say to yourself or you share with your team when you come up against those times?
Nothing really motivational, but just on an ongoing basis, good old treat others the way that you'd want to be treated. Think of yourself in the situation as the client. If you were having this problem, if this were your business, how would you handle it, and how would you want it to be handled for you?
Man, that's such a great mindset and such a great thing to have in the back of your mind, right? Because it's so easy for us to kind of get clouded a little bit, right? When we're in our business. And I would imagine that when you say that to yourself, it kind of helps you take a step back and go, okay, how do I think about situations objectively, which I think is great. So Paul, we in the pre-interview, we had talked a bit about, that you decided to niche in the CPA and the legal space about 5 years ago, which, by the way, I think is a phenomenal thing to do. Most MSPs, frankly, most businesses do not do this. But I'm curious, what brought about this change for you, and what benefits have you experienced as a result of doing that?
So, just as an aside, probably if I were not in the IT profession, I probably would have found myself in one of those two industries.
Okay.
So I take a personal interest to them. I also think that they're a business that relies on technology, relies on computers a lot, relies on the need for IT security, and they're a little unique. I mean, they're fast paced. CPA firms, they have their busy seasons. They need someone that can be there for them during those difficult times of the year when they're working 27 hours a day.
Yeah.
And that's where we are. We are that company that matches their hours during tax season, is there for them on those late hours, those long weekends. And the same thing for attorneys. They all have their early mornings, their late nights, and we match up to that skill set. And also the software that they use. CPA firms, they use special software from vendors. Intuit, Lacert, Drake, QuickBooks, just to name a few.
Yeah.
Attorneys have the same kind of time, different kind of time tracking programs, different kind of document management programs and needs. And so because we know those systems, because we support so many of their peers, we're able to service them that much faster. And so when the CPA has a problem, they can call us 80, 90% of the time. I'll say 90% of the time plus, even if it's something in their own application, we'll be able to resolve that problem, saving them usually 2-3 hours on the phone with the vendor during tax season.
Got it. So at the time, I love the fact that you have an interest in those specific industry verticals, which kind of drew you to them. Was there something going on in your business when you decided to focus on these two? Like, I'm trying to identify, like, what was it where you were like, man, we need to focus on some specific industries here. Do you remember anything that was going on at that point?
It was the type of client that we had the most of.
Yeah.
It was the type of client that we liked working with, and they liked working with us. And because of our interest and because of our exposure to them, we were able to provide them the best support.
Yeah.
Not to say that we don't have other industries. Many of our attorney clients and our CPA clients, they're great, and they refer us to their clients who might be in the same profession, but you know, uh, you know, doctors, construction practices,
Yeah.
management companies, and so we appreciate that as well. So, to the tune of marketing, we look to also an industry that also can provide us referrals.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those are trusted advisors just as we are.
You touched on this where when you've niche in a specific industry, it does allow you it allows you to become more efficient, right? Because you're used to their tech. You're used to their tech. You can service them much better. Um, from a marketing standpoint, were there things that you've experienced after making this shift to focus on these industries?
Absolutely. So when we're marketing, we're able to send items that are timely and beneficial to their industry.
Yeah.
So right now, CPA firms are, while they're in their low season, they're also concerned about some new compliance that is coming down. And FTC safeguards is one of them impacting CPA firms. And being that we're in that community, we're part of that community, we attend the CPA trade shows. We're able to talk to the CPAs about FTC safeguards and help them through that journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can speak their language.
Yeah,
And one of my mentors said specificity sells, right? And so if you're not in the industry of serving CPAs, you might not be up on the lingo, right? You might not talk about high season or low season, but when you can send out a marketing message that talks about these specific things that they're dealing with, it immediately engages them, which is huge. So, before we move on to my next question, is there anything else you want to add there?
just by having a niche and being specific to something. Now you look at the example of a general doctor versus a specialized surgeon, right? Who's gonna serve their client in that scenario, their patient better? And selfishly, I had that little bit of extra knowledge. I'm entitled to make a little bit more money as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I know we had also talked about, some of the marketing investments that you've made in the past. Some online marketing efforts didn't work quite as well as you thought, and you felt like it wasn't implemented correctly. Where do you think, and by the way, this happens all the time. So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you about it, because I think people can learn from this. Where do you think things went wrong, and what would you do differently next time?
So I've made a lot of great marketing moves. I've made a lot of bad marketing moves. Um, Talking about online marketing, I basically went with a consultant, hired a company, and let them run with it, and didn't I probably should have been asking more questions and being more on top of the trends and being more directive, but not being experienced myself in that area.
Yeah.
I didn't know what questions to ask. I kind of trusted that, the company that was doing it was doing the right thing and, knew what they were doing.
Yeah. So it's you should have asked more questions, but you didn't know what those questions should be, which made it difficult for you to manage them and hold them accountable. Am I getting that right?
I I would put that almost perfectly, and
Okay.
also devoting the time. Just because you outsource a task, right? Especially when it comes to your business, marketing, finance, you outsource it to someone. That doesn't mean that you're removed from the process.
Yeah.
And so the big thing I learned is I have to be just as involved as if I were doing it myself or doing it in house.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of people have gone down this same path, right? And because it's difficult when marketing is not your thing. um, it's really difficult to know. You don't know what you don't know, right? And so when you work with a consultant or you work with an agency, especially with marketing, not every marketer is going to say this, but most marketing takes time. Like there are not immediate results. Yes, there are some things that you can do from a marketing standpoint that generate more immediate results, like paid ads, those types of things. But in general, a lot of it takes time. And when it takes time to start seeing results, it can be really hard to manage that unless you've set very specific metrics and goals that you're going to track, and you set waypoints where people are going to they're going to hit, right? And so it's when people are working on longer term marketing things where you may not have a ton of metrics initially, it's setting those waypoints where it's like, okay, in 30 days you said we agreed we were going to be here, and in 60 we were going to be here, and in 90 we were going to be here. So it's what I find makes it easier to get this done is setting proper metrics and the right goalposts or waypoints that people are going to hit. And that's how you can hold them accountable. But I think also having a resource that you can rely on from more of an executive level standpoint with marketing makes it much easier to be able to hold implementers, people that are actually doing the work, accountable.
Yeah.
So I hope that's helpful. And you shared some really good stuff there, because I think this happens all the time. I talk to business owners every week that are like, I just spent this money with an agency and it didn't work. Like nothing happened.
It takes time, obviously for everyone listening, no reason, especially when you're talking, the internet, Facebook,
Yeah.
Google Ads, SEO, and I was prepared. I sat it out the entire year. I didn't, lose
Yeah.
faith or go crazy. But toward the end, there were some excuses made by the other side. I'm like, oh, well, you should have told me this 6 months ago. Maybe we would have done
Right.
something different.
Right. Yeah. Which I think is where those waypoints or really, really help keep people accountable throughout the entire process, so that we don't get to the end. Because the reality is, Paul, even though these things take time, you still have indications as you're doing the work whether it's headed in the right direction or not. And if it's not
So I,
headed
so
in the
I, so
right
I guess, as they say, you got to follow your gut.
follow your gut. But it also, you've got, it's when you look at marketing, it's no different than most parts of business. Like if you're choosing to do something, we need to have a goal, right? Like, why are we doing this? And once we set that goal, our goal for doing that specific thing then helps dictate what we're going to look at and track to determine whether we're on pace. And so we need to do that for each of the marketing activities that we're doing as well, right? Because some people are trying to brand build, or some people are trying to generate leads, or some people are trying to improve lead conversions. Like all of those things are different goals, and you're going to be tracking different metrics to help determine whether you're on point for that. So, we always, not just with marketing, everything in our business, I think we need to look at what are we going to do, why are we doing that, and how are we going to track our progress towards that. So thank you for sharing that, Paul, because I think there's a lot people can learn from that, because like I said, you are not the only person that that has been in that boat. Getting in front of the right prospects is a challenge for a lot of MSPs. Anybody in the B2B professional service realm, getting in front of the right prospects. What are you doing to push through that challenge?
The most successful, outside of, actually the most successful thing that I've done, and for leads and for getting in front of the right people, is in-person networking. I'm a member of a LaTip group. It's similar to BNI, other leads exchange groups. I mean, every weekend, I'm not afraid to go out and ask and say, hey, I'm looking to meet CPAs who, are in this geography, who have this business size. If you know anyone, let me know.
Yeah.
And then I'll take it from there. And the same goes for asking existing clients for referrals. Happy customers bring happy customers.
Yeah. Well, birds of a feather flock together, right? Like CPAs know other CPAs, attorneys know other attorneys.
And those referrals, they're very, very trustworthy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to pull a few things out here that you've already shared, because to me, one of the simplest ways to get in front of the right people is to niche like you've done. When you can niche by industry, it becomes much, much easier to identify where those people are. You already touched on, like, you're going to trade shows for CPAs, right? You can go to trade shows for attorneys. But when a lot of people target much more broadly, right? Oh, I work with small business owners or medium-sized businesses. Well, man, that target is so dang big. Like we can't even see the bullseye, right? Like all we're seeing is red because the target is so big. But when we narrow it down, it becomes much, much easier. We did this for a client that was actually a CPA. She specialized in veterinary practices. Well, the minute she narrowed that down, I call it an ideal client GPS list. It's a list of where you can go to find your ideal clients. Well, when it's by industry, all of a sudden, like, okay, I mean, you can just do a Google search for it, right? Veterinary trade shows, podcasts for vets, like associations they belong to, people they follow, websites they visit, email lists they subscribe to. All of those things become so much easier and so much more targeted. When you go to a trade show, it's not a trade show for like every freaking small business owner under the sun. It's for CPAs. It's for attorneys. You know that you're going to be talking to the right people there. So the way I always think about it is like you're not casting a net out in the middle of the ocean, hoping you're going to catch a fish. You're going down to the local trout farm, sticking a line in the water. You know you're going to catch a trout. You are in the right place.
That's great advice.
So I think one of the biggest things that you did to get in front of the right people is focusing on a specific niche, because it's much, much easier. What's been the biggest driver of your growth?
Yeah, kind of going back to our mantra of treating others the way that we want to be treated, right? Getting those referrals, growing as an organization, growing, maturity, our operational maturity, as well as industry knowledge, contacts in the industry, contacts
Yeah.
within our client profile.
What are your aspirations for the future, Paul? Where do you want to go with Titan?
Love to get on that rocket ship and go to the moon, right?
Yeah.
Uh, right now we service New Jersey, and our we kind of touch on PA and New York State and New York City over there. I'd like to grow more in the region.
Yeah.
And continue to grow the business, and really be the kind of business that a CPA or attorney wants to have as their IT service provider.
Do you okay? We didn't talk about this, but I want to pull this out because I think there's a roadblock that a lot of people have. Because you've niched serving CPAs and legal. You're also really focused on a fairly set geographic area, but you still have plenty of opportunity to grow within that area, even though you've niched. Yes?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, because I think that's a huge roadblock for a lot of people where they're like, gosh, if I niche, I'm closing myself off to all this business. But it's really the exact opposite because when you niche, your message is so much better. And the reality is most businesses don't need hundreds of new clients every year. They need 10, 20, 30. And the market is still plenty big enough to get that many people, even when you niche.
You just wait for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Thank you, Paul, for taking the time. I want to ask you one more question before we wrap things up today. And that is, knowing what you know now, is there anything you would do differently?
Started marketing a lot earlier, niched a lot earlier. Don't be afraid of it. Not being afraid of it.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a self-serving answer for me. uh, so I love it. So many people they just have, it's hard to make that leap to niche or to invest in marketing consistently. But gosh, I have interviewed so many business owners like you, so many MSPs like you, that man, their business changed when they niched, when they started investing in marketing on a regular basis. Things shift, and I was just listening to a podcast the other day from another marketer, and I talk about this a lot, where he's like, look, as business owners, we're you are in the business of being an MSP, being an IT provider, but your first business is being a marketer, because if you don't have marketing bringing in leads that convert to clients, then it doesn't matter how great of an MSP you are, right? And that's the way it is for all of us. We are marketing and salespeople first and foremost, and then we're whatever we actually do, which I think it's a difficult mindset shift for a lot of people. But the minute you can accept that, your business is going to be so much better for it.
And the follow-up question for that is, who's responsible for sales in your organization?
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Every touch point, right? Every touch point that a prospect or a client has with your organization is a marketing and a sales touch point, right?
Yeah.
And we can't lose sight of that. Paul, this has been a fantastic conversation, man. Thank you so much for taking the time. Where can people learn more about you? How can they connect?
Yeah, check out our website, timefortitan.com. You can also look me up on LinkedIn and YouTube.
Cool. I love it. Timefortitan.com. And on LinkedIn, it's just Paul Nebb, Nebb. So go search him, connect with Paul, go check out Time for Titan. Paul, thank you so much for taking the time. Those of you that are watching, listening, I appreciate you. Thank you for doing that. Paul shared a number of different things that he's done, he's learned from within his business. We spent a lot of time talking about target market and and messaging and that side of it, which are 2 of the 9 revenue roadblocks we help clients remove so they can accelerate growth. If you want to find out which of the 9 are slowing down your growth, you can do that over at revenueroadblockscorecard.com. You can also always connect with us over at rialtomarketing.com. Feel free to book a free discovery call. Be happy to help guide you into where you should be focusing your marketing efforts right now based on where you are and where you want to go. So, Paul, thank you. Those of you watching, listening, thank you. Until next time, take care.